Hi there, I'm Marty Levinson. Welcome to the Northtown News Magazine with the greatest cameraman around, Sonny Hirsch, and your host, Avi Myers.
Thank you, Marty. Avi Myers, Northtown Neighborhood News Magazine, a presentation of Sonny Hirsch and myself. Although he is not responsible for the content of the show, and I actually do all the editing myself, just for those of you who need to know. And trust me when I tell you that Sonny and my opinion can differ, and thank God for that. In any event, Marty Levinsons are different in the front of the show. We're doing data recovery on our years of Marty Levinsons. It is a pleasure to introduce you to, I'm going to read this exactly the way it's written, Stephen Resnicoff, Professor of Law, Director of DePaul Center for Jewish Law and Judaic Studies. How you doing?
Hi, thanks. Good morning.
Okay, so it's all yours. What do you want to talk about today?
Well, thank you. I wanted to focus on what I think, and first of all, I want to say that even though I'm the director of DePaul College of Law's Center for Jewish Law and Judaic Studies, I'm not speaking on its behalf. I'm speaking about on my behalf and expressing my own opinions. These days you have to say that.
Yeah, you do.
I want to focus on the two threats that I think, most serious threats. Of course, there are different dangers and menaces in the world, but the two most serious threats facing the United States today, which are number one, Iran, whether nuclear or non-nuclear, and number two, the loss of our moral compass. And they're interrelated. So let's talk about Iran for a minute, if you don't mind.
Whatever you like.
So I think that Iran, we have to understand that there is the Congress is considering right now this proposed nuclear pact with Iran, a country that has funded terrorist acts that have killed Americans, that the same Islamic regime committed an act of war against the United States by invading its embassy and imprisoning its diplomats for over a year in complete violation of all international law norms, and is continuing to hold Americans, journalists, Christians in captivity today. The same Iran that calls America the great Satan and invokes the slogan, death to America, time and time again.
On a daily basis.
Exactly. And which is developing ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles, not to reach Israel, it doesn't need them for that, but to reach America, the great Satan. We're negotiating with this country and naively thinking that we can trust them. I say naively because, I want to...
I'm going to just interject
Sure.
for a second. The present president, or whatever he's called, the so-called moderate among the six that was chosen by the Ayatollah Khomeini, or is that Khomeini, whatever. But the fact of the matter is, in the 1980s, when they were negotiating nuclear deals with America, he openly said to his own press and the European press how he had fooled and buffaloed America about what their nuclear intentions were at the time. And it ain't much better today. The guy's just a better liar after 30 years' experience.
Well, you say that, and interestingly, we had supposedly an agreement, and then, we had negotiations, and we had extended negotiations, and we had more extended negotiations, and then we had this supposed agreement, basically, that wasn't signed, that was going to be fine-tuned, but the day after they announced that it was going to be fine-tuned, and President Obama went on the air to explain what it is and why it would be good for America, the Islamic regime said, no, that's not part, that what he said is there, that's not part of the deal. I mean, they denied that which the president was trying to tell us was the reason to be for the deal. That wasn't part of the deal. In fact, they continued to do the same thing. So it's inspections. Indeed, what's shocking is that inspections. In fact, the Secretary of State Kerry and President Obama said that's why we should go for this deal. This is, unprecedented inspections. And in fact, the inspections are subject to side agreements between the organization that will do the inspections, which not the United States, and the Iranians. And Secretary of State Kerry, in front of the congressional panel, said he hasn't read the side agreements. And he's not certain whether anybody in his staff had read the side agreements. And that's what the legitimacy of the inspection regimen depends on, proper inspections.
So, not to mention a 24-day waiting period.
Oh, the waiting periods are terrible.
That's a joke.
Well, unfortunately, it's not funny if it's a joke, but it's a terrible
No, we're
thing.
talking about the future of the world.
Yes. And when I say the loss of the moral compass, what I mean is that, there is worldwide, and ironically, I would say almost especially in the West, an erosion of our concern for basic human rights. The West has essentially completely abandoned Christians and other religious minorities throughout the whole Middle East. Let them be slaughtered, raped, enslaved, and nothing is done to protect them. There's wholesale persecution of people who have different sexual preferences than the norm throughout the entire Middle East, and the West does nothing to protect them. There's terrible persecution of political activists who want to challenge the status quo, the tyrannies that exist there, and we provide no protection. In fact, in Pakistan, where a doctor helped America capture Osama bin Laden, we don't even help him. He rots in jail. Yeah. I mean, we have a red line in Syria, and the red line's broken, and we do nothing. How in the world can anyone, I say these two concerns are interrelated, how in the world could anyone who cares about the danger that's posed by Iran, not just to the United States, but also to other countries, such as other countries in the Middle East, how can they possibly rely on anyone in the West coming to their assistance, having their back, if it hasn't had the back of all of these other constituencies that whose claim resonates even more with the governmental powers in the West who are in position. So I think it's terrible in what's happened.
By the way, he does have their back, but with a dagger.
Well, I don't mean I'm not complaining about President Obama per se. I assume that's who you're alluding to.
Yep.
I think though that it is true that the lack of concern for human rights and is also related to anti-Semitism, and when the world has seen a lack of respect for human rights and rise in anti-Semitism, we've had terrible wars and everyone suffered. And I say these two things are interrelated because we know that there's terrible rise in the scourge of anti-Semitism throughout the world, but it's also being fed within the United States. And this is not purposely fed per se. It's being done to try to back the Iran deal, but it feeds anti-Semitism. And it starts as an article in, I think, today's Wall Street Journal by Jim Taranto states, it starts at the top. He says, for example, that the New York Times reported last week in a meeting with two leaders of AIPAC, quote, the president accused AIPAC of spending millions of dollars in advertising against the deal and spreading false claims about it. People in the meeting recalled. And he said that Mr. Obama told the AIPAC leaders that he was going to hit back hard. And the next day, he denounced the deal's opponents as lobbyists, doling out millions of dollars. He didn't mention AIPAC or Jews, but he talked about the dollars. And he had an interview with CNN's Fareed Zakaria. And this Fareed Zakaria made it clear that what he had in mind was money. For example, he says if you look at somebody, this is quoting Zakaria, like Senator Schumer, if you ask yourself what does he gain by supporting the deal, not very much. What does he gain by opposing the deal? If he were to support President Obama on this, if he were to support this deal, he knows it would cause a firestorm of opposition, particularly among, perhaps wealthy supporters. He wouldn't be able to raise as much money. So an interviewer asked Zakaria, so it's money? Zakaria answered, it's money. It's the possibility that you lose support of a core group of supporters. There's a very strongly organized campaign against the deal. There isn't a particularly strong campaign organized for the deal. Now, there's no campaign for the deal. The President of the United States, the Secretary, no organization. So there's an asymmetry of cost. So if you vote for this deal, you don't get a lot. But if you get a huge opposition against it. And then he quotes other people. This is the Toronto Tablet magazine. You may be familiar, it's essentially a leftist magazine, did not take a position on the Iran deal, but had a full editorial board editorial proclaiming, declaiming this terribly bigoted, anti-Semitic campaign against all those people who support it, especially Charles Schumer, who's the first major Jewish senator who came out to say that he's going to oppose the Iran deal.
And God bless you, Senator Schumer. Keep up the good course here, at least anyway. And he is the logical successor to Harry Reid as the Democratic head of the Senate. 45 seconds, whatever you like.
So I guess what I was going to say also is that this, in terms of the lack of moral compass, it's a problem that we are becoming desensitized to the terribly radical radical Islamic events that are taking place around the world and in the United States. It used to be someone did something and people reacted. Now it's beginning to become so regular, so frequent, that people just sit back and accept it. By the way, I don't know if you know, came as a surprise to me, but the Obama administration on July 21st changed the oath of allegiance that people have to take to become American citizens. They no longer have to, quote, bear arms on behalf of the United States, unquote, or perform non-combatant services in the armed forces of the United States. And it's being, Raymond Ibrahim in Front Page Magazine explains that this is to accommodate the religious beliefs of Islamic persons who want to become citizens because they cannot, according to the religion, fight for America against Islamics of other countries.
Unreal, but this is the end. Contact information, Professor Dr. Rabbi Stephen Resnicoff.
S. Resnico, R-E-S-N-I-C-O, at DePaul.edu. Be happy to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and we look forward to having you back again.
Thanks.